Good evening, YouTube. Welcome back to Play the Hits. This is episode 2 of Final Fantasy VI, which is taking place about 20 seconds after episode 1 wrapped up because we have no willpower. How you doing, Max?
No, pretty good tonight. I'm
this
liking
is
that
hitting
we're
the
going
spot.
through this. Pretty,
You know?
yeah. Seriously, it's been a while. It really, it's good to be playing this game again.
It's kind of like going home again. You know, you can't beat it. In very much the same way as I'm getting all the feels from FF4 with Nick. This game probably to a greater degree just because of how much more emotionally invested into its story I was.
I think FF4 definitely has the greater nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
It was the first one I played independently. I played Final Fantasy. Not when it first came out, but we had it on the NES. But
yeah, I was going to say, to the
playing with my brothers.
Right, to the extent that the NES Final Fantasy game was playable.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that game. I'm giving it shit, but you know, it was the innovator and the progenitor of the entire series. But at the same time, like, if you're gonna play that game, you've got to play one of the re-releases. It's just not. It doesn't work on modern standards at all.
And it's crazy how many of even the SNES games had a lot of glitches. Some of them being like making the whole system that they were built on not work. Battle systems. Right. You know, Final Fantasy 1 had a bit of that, where the whole in the original game, the weapons, how critical hits worked. Was dependent not on their attack value or their critical hit value, it was dependent on the number of the weapon in the game. So it ended up being that the first weapons of the game would almost never critical hit, because it would be like, here's the first sword. So you have like a 1 in 255 chance or something like that. But it also made it so that near the end of the game, the best swords critical hit all the time.
Yeah,
you know,
you're absolutely right.
Like this is sword 200 something or whatever it was, so it's going to critical hit 90% of the time or something. So, but it ended up being a weird. They ended up keeping that system in the GBA versions because it was like, whatever, it kind of worked in its weird way. But
yeah, to the point where like
this
you
game
could
had some weird glitches.
Yeah, you could demolish like the optional bosses in that game with the right swords. But I actually that was actually the version of FF1 that I did play through, and actually do the Dawn of Souls one, and that's still the only version of FF2 that I've played through.
Yeah, well, they fixed a lot with FF1 and 2. A lot of game break. Well, FF2, what was it? The whole
I mean, it still wasn't good.
Attack. Yeah, you can like cancel attacks and become beefy in like one battle or something.
Yeah, it was a broken system to begin with. They polished it up a little bit and actually made it to the point where I could make it through the whole game, but I wouldn't do it again. And there's actually very few Final Fantasies that I can say that about.
That you wouldn't do it again. Yeah, I think Final Fantasy 2, kind of like a history lesson, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, here we go. This is where they started.
I gotta give them credit, though, especially during the NES days. They tried something that had never been done before. It was completely new and really unique even by modern standards. I mean, there's very few games that successfully pull off the level system that is truly organic, that you just kind of level up with the character based on what you use. The fact that they were trying that in like 1986 was absolutely crazy.
Yeah, that's true. Now, I see what you mean about the difficulty. I think about, where you are right now and the tools that Edgar has available to him.
Yeah, the auto crossbow's pretty broken for this point in the game.
Quickly. I didn't steal that much, Even today, I don't really steal all that much with Locke. But you get that so quickly, and you get the auto crossbow, and it's demolishing things right now,
Mm-hmm.
And I think about FF4, where it was kind of like a scrap. You struggled a bit in the beginning of the game.
You could, potentially.
I'm trying to think like where you first start feeling really powerful, and I don't know. It always seemed like a struggle. Even when you get Rydia back, you get, maybe sort of when you got Fusoya, and also when you got Tella to remember his spells, but his MP sucked. And
right, yeah.
even though the enemies were nice and easy, sort of, you would run out of MP really quickly, and they upped the difficulty of the bosses so that you had to use the best spells in the game.
And again, though, clarifying real quick, when you're talking about this difficulty, you are pretty much exclusively talking about the original Japanese version.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the Japanese version. Yeah, not easy type, not the super. That again was just hit A and win. I'm talking about,
and even
I'm not talking about the DS version either. That was
a different kind of difficult.
That was different. I'm talking about like the GBA version, which I consider is like pretty much the same as the original Japanese version.
Playing that right now, though, with the PSP coat of paint, I can tell you it's still pretty easy.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm willing to make that statement is because I actually not too long ago just finished the original Japanese version on the SNES for the first time, which I also have right here on my SNES Classic. I'm just going to lay next to this man and gently caress him.
I was about to say, this looks a little saucy.
Yeah, right. And having played the SNES original finally for the first time, it is heads and shoulders more difficult than the GBA/PSP version. Not
the
quite.
Oh, PSP. I thought you were talking about PS1. Okay.
Yeah, no, the PSP version, the complete collection, that's just a straight port of the GBA one with a better translation and a fresh coat of paint. It is not. It's definitely more. You have to think about battles more than the FF2 Easy type. But it's still not. Like I said, it's practically a speed run, and I am not bothering to go out of my way to level. So
gotcha.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Alrighty.
But that being said, you're right. The DS version, I mean, that really is a completely separate game.
It is.
In everything but the plot.
They decided to just ramp up the difficulty. That's
they rebuilt the whole combat system from the ground up.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
the pacing
to the point
is
where
different.
Battles are different numbers of enemies.
Right.
You know,
the equipment is different. The enemies are different.
Everything's different. Yeah, you're right. But altogether,
and that's not a bad thing because it made what was old completely new again, and I give them a lot of credit for that. And in fact, I'm kind of pissed off that in the tablet and Steam versions of that release, they actually toned down the difficulty. So I've heard.
Really?
Yeah, which is a reason that I will not be purchasing it anytime soon.
Yeah.
Because that was my favorite thing about the DS version, is that it was the same game that I fell in love with years ago. But at the same time, I was really having to think hard about fights and completely redo my strategies.
Yeah. It was the DS version of the game. It was a great game, because then they had an awesome New Game Plus, basically, because you really didn't want to fight the 4 elementals merged together or the, Proto-Babble on your first playthrough. It's really difficult. You wanted to go through with the fucking onion swords and have all the best stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, this was the first time, the first good town you got to, buying the first equipment, the relics. Mm-hmm. And that was a fun thing, kind of messing around with the relics.
Yeah, especially when you hadn't really messed with it before. Things like the sprint shoes, that was pretty unique for the
that day. Was like, whoa, and then I would never take the sprint shoes off. I couldn't walk around once you experienced that.
Yeah, no. I'm so glad this version has the dash, and I just don't need to worry about the sprint shoes.
Yeah, filling up a slot, yeah.
Right. So, last episode, we were talking quite a bit about villains, and I definitely have a few more things to say from that conversation.
Well, I'm kind of thinking, aside from the ones we talked about, Final Fantasy doesn't have a great track record of villains.
No, and that's kind of what I want to get into, because we talked about the best ones. And like I said, you'll have to let me know how you feel Vayne stacks up once you finally get a chance to play it. But, yeah, so the overall, though, some kind of weak villains.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about FF7, but in FF8 we had Edea, then Ultimecia. Edea had kind of a cool twist, which was that she was the caretaker of the party, but she also wasn't the real villain. It was Ultimecia, and she got no development whatsoever. You really didn't even see her or interact with her in any way, shape, or form until the final act.
And technically, with the story, that you were interacting, talking with Ultimecia through Edea, and through Renoa a little bit, but I would still
her
consider
intentions
her
were not clear.
Last minute. She's a last minute villain. She
was, because all you really know about her is what Eleni and Edea tell you about her.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's really no room for development. It's like, oh, what's your motivation? Time compression. No, but why are you doing this? Fuck you. Like, let's
basically.
Fight.
That is the game where, and the villain is a big mystery, sort of, even after they reveal her.
Which isn't a bad thing, but there needs to be payoff for that mystery, and there wasn't payoff with her.
Not really, no. It was kind of like, okay, well, now we have to do, so let's go kill this person.
You're breaking up just a little bit.
Oh, that's weird. It was completely necessity. That it's just like, well, Renoa is being possessed, and now we know what the plan is. That she wants to time compress. Well, fuck it, let's let her do it. That's how we're gonna kill this mystery person that's trying to fuck everything up. But we don't know much about her.
A way cooler plot twist would have been if they didn't even give Ultimecia like a corporeal form. She just continually possessed people. Like that was how she operated. And the final fight, you had to actually fight Renoa and find a way to save her, pull her back. I think that would have been a way more emotionally investing final boss than we got. Especially since all of your characters were basically blank slates in that game, and it really wouldn't have mattered if you had one less party member.
Or even if they did the whole, you've heard the theories of, Renoa's Ultimecia, and
from like an alternate timeline or something.
And the creators have denied that and say, that's not true.
It's like, we weren't thinking that hard about this.
But hell, I like the theory, and if it was that they made it so that you knew that was the case going into the final fight, it would have made it have a lot more weight to it, where it's like, holy shit.
Definitely.
We need to do this and then prevent this from happening. And it would have been really tough, kind of like facing your, this is what I can end up becoming. This is terrible. I want to be this, And instead it was just like, I'm a mystery villain, and it's up to us to really figure out why is she even doing this.
Exactly.
And I think kind of they don't even explain it ever, even in the Ultimania, I think, but kind of what a lot of people think is that she was persecuted because they knew, or she knew all of her life she was going to end up being this kind of person, so she kind of just fell into it, basically.
Which, again, I really would have liked that to actually be in the game, though. Let me know some about this.
It's not. Just like a lot of FF15 stuff was not really in the game. It's now it's being novelized, or maybe it was in DLC, or in a fucking loading screen of a DLC, which is like,
right. Which is actually why I appreciate Arden so much, is that at the very least, he was one of the few bright spots in that game's narrative that actually was relatively well developed.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's actually fully developed, and his motivations, they do become pretty crystal clear.
Yeah, like the surprise was actually a surprise. It wasn't just like, now you're fighting Zemus. It's like, okay.
Whatevs. And he was like grooming Noctis in a believable way. And
he was stringing him right along.
You look back on driving, like following him in his car, and even he's like camping out with you guys, and it just gives you a sick feeling, like, God,
like what is?
He knew what he was doing the whole time.
It's almost like he's stalking you throughout the whole game.
Yeah, he is.
He's
creepy. He knows from the very beginning what he wants, and so he's making it happen, and he is stringing it. Everything goes to plan for Arden. Every single thing really does. And you think about like Final Fantasy 13. It's kind of the same plot device where the not the Faith, what do you call them? The Fal'Cie.
The Fal'Cie, yeah.
The Barthandelus is stringing you along the whole time and grooming you, but they're just emotionless
robots, basically.
quasi-gods, basically,
Yeah.
and it kind of sucks. They suck as villains. Arden's doing the same thing functionally. He's grooming Noctis, but he's oozing with personality. And I think how they do it's great. You look back on it, and you were like, oh god, he was oozing me.
To this day, jumping forward a bit, I still don't understand Bartandalus's motivation for wanting to destroy everything. Other than, like, he's basically programmed to.
Orphan, he wants to, like, I guess, bring Orphan out and have Orphan be killed. It's to bring back the Maker. That's what it was. And
that's right.
They're like lost little children. They want to be reunited with Daddy or Mommy or whatever it is. I guess
you're still breaking up just a little bit if you want to fillet the mic.
That was me burping, actually.
Nice.
I think with that, it was just dumb. It was kind of a dumb story, you know.
Yeah. 13 had
so going into
issues.
13, it was like a cool looking boss, sure, and it was a little bit of a surprise, a little bit, that the Pope effectively was, you know, a fal'Cie, but not really. Like, I figured he was evil. Well, he even had an evil look about him.
Yeah, right. He basically looked like Dick Cheney in a Pope robe. You know? And so that really
when that happened, it was like, oh, okay, you know.
Now, where I thought the story was going in that one was I thought Sid was gonna show his hand later. And granted, you do fight Sid. But I thought he was gonna be way more central to the goings-on of the overall story in that game. But then I also had some other theories about that game's story that completely didn't pan out. So
and I think with that game, you can tell that it was going somewhere, and then they kind of had
and they couldn't decide.
And because, like Sid, again, like there was the whole turning around. Like, I do have to kill you guys. This is my focus, but I'm trying to fight against the fal'Cie. And I was like, that was cool. And then they brought him back.
I still don't get that. Why the fuck he was even alive in the last act?
Yeah, why they brought him back to be like, now we're gonna use you as a puppet, and he just ends up killing himself. He ends up like letting them put a bullet. He either kills himself or he lets.
I don't remember. Like that's
the
how
cavalry put a bullet in his brain, and it was like, that is so dumb. Why would you even put him back if we're not even fighting him? If he doesn't have a redemption arc, it was sucked.
Yeah.
It sucked.
They explain things so poorly, and it's kind of a shame because like the skeleton of the story there is actually kind of interesting, but they don't explain anything. They don't take the time to world build or character build or anything. It's all just rushed. That whole game was just so rushed.
Which kind of sucked because the sci-fi kind of element, like there's this floating world that we all know.
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
Underworld, which is kind of...
Damn, that is a broken weapon.
Named Gauche. Gauche?
Yeah. Holy crap.
What is it, Gauche?
Gauche?
Knife, I guess.
I don't know. Let's ask a pirate.
But it was underdeveloped, I guess you could say, which I could even dig that if it's like you don't know much about this world, it's serious. We're gonna explain it in little bits as you go, but they didn't do enough. They definitely didn't do enough for the world building. Yeah, I mean FF8 did world building. That was a mysterious world as well. But they showed you every step of the way. Hey, this world has this kind of technologies. Hey, here's how the politics works in this world.
Yeah.
You know, while developing the characters too. They did a good job.
And FF8 made up for its lack of a solid villain with, I still think, a really solid main cast.
Yeah, and
not the best in the series, but still very good.
Concurrently playing as your dad, you don't know that, and
that was a cool thing.
I guess they never officially reveal it, but obviously,
actually they do. That was just a translation botch.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Damn.
So the moment is supposed to come when
on the ship
Squall meets Ward and Kiros for the first time.
Yeah.
Now in the English, what we get is something really vague, like you have his eyes, or something like that. And like who the fuck are you talking about? You know?
Yeah.
And again, in the Japanese, it's supposed to be much clearer that he's referring to Laguna, like something to the effect of we're gonna take you to meet the guy that you've been dreaming about or seeing in your visions or whatever. I forget. I'd have to look up the article that I read, but he alludes to it in a way
bones about it.
Yeah. So like, we think you know who he is already, but you have his eyes, or something like that, or yeah.
8 was such a weird game, and I love it so much, and it really kind of tears me up that they're releasing 7 and 9 and 10 and 12.
Oh,
again.
8's getting the shaft these days.
8, not re-released on the PS4, not being re-released on the Switch. It's like, is it really just the music? Is it? It
and then
seems weird that
the version that came out for Steam is so bad.
Oh, really?
It like almost unplayable. Like you really have to. The graphical settings are all messed up. The sound is like these really low rent MIDIs instead of the really good soundtrack that you actually got. And then like you have to almost mod the game to get a Xbox controller to work with it. I think it's straight up just
keep fucking this up.
I don't know. I think that is actually just a straight re-release of the like
Super
19
old PC version.
Yeah, the old PC version that was released in the 90s.
That came out with the game on PlayStation beta. Because the PC version used those same quality MIDI files, didn't it?
Yeah.
So that really supports the theory that it really was just like a port.
It was literally a straight up port of a 20-year-old game that
Which
wasn't
would make
very
sense
good
that it can't
when it was
support
released.
Your controller, you know, an Xbox controller, that kind of fits that theory. Oh,
and that all of the menus when you're trying to set everything up are running in like 480i and like are almost unreadable. It's really, I'm not exaggerating. It's that bad.
That's unacceptable. Like, do they literally have one guy who's just an intern that like runs the whole porting these old games over to Steam? Like, he's just like, I don't know what I'm doing, guys. Yeah, you'll figure it out. Like, oh God.
Get back to work and maybe we'll pay you.
Yeah,
it's not good. But now jumping back to what we were kind of talking about, the most controversial pick I have, as far as enemies go, is Kuja from FF9. He would actually be one of my favorites if they had just had the guts to follow through with him. Like, so
with what he wanted to do.
Yeah, so his whole thing, like, they actually built him up. He started off as really mysterious. Then he killed Queen Braun, and you got to know him, and it's like, wow, he's a really demented dude. And then I love the whole, like, his motivation, which is like, why should the world exist without me? Like, he can't reconcile himself to the fact that he's gonna die. And so he just kind of slips into nihilism, and he wants to destroy everything. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like, because I can actually sympathize with that a little bit. I mean, like, we've talked about this before. Like, the whole process of death just terrifies me.
Oh, yeah. And
so I can totally see where he's coming from. He feels like he was basically just created and then rejected just to die.
And that's the thing. Like, I feel like Zidane is like a better version who was more balanced. It's kind of like the Celeste versus Kefka thing. That Kefka was the first
prototype. Yeah,
and they obviously
got
fucked
screwed
up with him.
Right,
and they did a lot better with Celeste. So Kuja was kind of like the first run, and obviously he's very powerful, but he's cracked, and he kind of goes about things as a selfish child, you know. So it's like, when he does,
like everything about him is so superficial. Like, he loves the opera because, he's so dramatic and that's how he wants to present himself, as something worthwhile. And
I guess it is if a very little kid figured out the concept of death. That's kind of like how Kuja's reacting is probably how they'd react. Only he has the power to fuck a lot of stuff up.
Yeah.
You know.
And so then, after all of that, and then after him, like, you know, tearing his home world apart with the Ultima spell, and like, he's gonna destroy the crystal so that everyone has to die with him, and I mean, that's all really fucked up in like the best possible way. And then, in the final minutes, you fight fucking Necron, which already I don't even consider him anything. But then when Zidane goes and finds Kuja, he's like, yeah, I'm sorry. All right. Yeah. Like there's any redeeming him. Like, why? They don't have to redeem every fucking villain, you know? Just let him be bad.
And he was the villain. He was the villain.
Yeah.
Again, like you said, Necron thing, you're right. Kuja was the villain for literally, once he's introduced, 99.5% of the game.
Yeah.
Like, Necron is introduced in the last 10, 15 minutes of playtime.
Right.
You know?
And so, but I mean, like, even then, it's almost like with Necron, I can forgive Necron more than I can forgive Kuja, because with Necron, it's almost like, oh, Kuja was fucking around with forces he didn't understand, and he just, like, woke up this really evil thing.
Yeah.
Even though he's not the real villain, like, you've got to put him away, because if he got out, the world would be fucked.
It kind of
like,
makes sense. The crystal is, like, the source of all things.
Yeah,
so
and it's sealing away Necron.
kind of,
yeah.
That does make sense.
So I can get on board with that. That's one thing. But then to go back and have Zidane's, like, I could totally see Zidane doing what he did. Like, Kuja's my brother. I've got to go back and save him. And then they have that kind of meaningful dialogue. I don't like that at all. I would have much rather Kuja say, like, what, you think you're going to redeem me now? Or something like that after all that I've done?
You think you're better than me? I can't stand that.
I would have loved for him to go down that way. And instead, they just
that would make more sense.
They try to tug at your heartstrings, which is totally not how I interpreted or understood that character at all. Like, I did not want him to tug at my heartstrings at all. And so when they did try to do that, it just felt cheap and tacked on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It was very out of character for him. And if someone grows, like, legitimately, that makes sense. But
no, he had no moment of growth.
How would Kuja grow?
Not at all. Like, basically all we did was kick his ass, and now he's like, I'm sorry.
Right? Yeah. Like, how would he have seen Necron or seen the Eternal Darkness or something? Like, is that enough to turn him around? I'm sorry. No.
The fact that Zidane was pitying him and showing kindness to him, like, everything that we know about Kuja up to that point, he would have been completely insulted by that and have rejected it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Again, like, you think you're better than me? Like, fuck you.
Like,
he would have been insulted.
Yeah. What would have been a much cooler thing for him to do was, like, do one last, like, sleight of hand to try to kill Zidane or take him with him. And then that's why you don't see Zidane for a year, because it's not clear if Kuja killed him or not. But then, you know, when Zidane does come back, it's that much more emotional, because it's like, oh man, he lived, thank God. But no, that's not what happened.
That would have made a lot more sense. They would have had to do very little to make that happen. They already had everything in place.
Right, like, if
they fumbled it with Kuja's personality.
If they ever, like, put an HD coat of paint on that game, that's the one thing I would change story-wise, is, you know, just give Kuja the more villainous ending that he deserves.
That he does deserve that. He does. He doesn't deserve to.
Because he's actually really well written, and they just, like, fumbled on the end zone at the very last minute.
Yeah, they did. But he is a good villain.
Yeah,
no,
but because of that, though, because of his weak follow-through, he's not in my top 3 favorite villains. No. Now, contrast that with Kefka, who just starts a lunatic and ends a lunatic. Vayne, who is completely blinded by his own power and has to be executed for that. And Arden, who is just so obsessed with revenge. I mean, those are strong motivations, and the villains commit to them. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's Garland, like, I think about Final Fantasy at the time, I wouldn't consider that, like, a bad villain. He had no personality.
Yeah. Right. So the NES FFs were kind of interesting, too, because you're right. Garland, for his time, there wasn't much to him, but, you know, he stuck to the story. And
and it was an interesting villain that you didn't expect it to be Garland. Really, the first boss you fought, like, that's the boss of the game. All right, cool. But and then the Emperor.
Now the Emperor was all right too. I mean, he was.
He seemed like
I feel like he was more limited just by the fact that he was on the NES. Like, they didn't have enough data storage to really load a compelling backstory for him.
I think FF2 make, like, a good movie. Like, okay, I'm gonna go to hell now. Get this power. Like, what?
so that was basically it. By the time you fought the Emperor at the end, he had kind of sold his soul to the devil, and as a result, he was completely warped and twisted. Like, he wasn't himself anymore, which is kind of cool. And then FF3 did the exact same thing as those other examples that we talked about, where it just pulled the villain out of nowhere in the final, hour of the game.
The final act.
Yeah, Cloud of Darkness. Who gives a shit?
Apparently, that
I get it.
Necron was supposed to be a callback to that he was called Eternal Darkness.
Yeah, in fact, it's kind
version.
of loosely implied, yeah, that FF3 and FF9 may actually share a final villain. I mean, that's not confirmed in any way, shape, or form, but, you're right, it is kind of an interesting thing that they would do that. But then that brings us to FF10. Now, FF10 I've got some beef with. One, because they really built Jecht up in a unique way for a villain, which is that he wasn't doing what he was doing of his own will. Which is kind of cool. And so they kind of hint at Yevon throughout the game a little bit. There's this whole cult of Yevon that's kind of running the world, and they clearly have sinister machinations. And then when you fight, what's her name? Yevon's daughter.
At Xanarkand?
Unalesca. Yeah, Unalesca. And she's like, you don't want to fuck with Yevon. And it's like, oh man, this Yevon must be a horrifying badass. And you finally fucking see it.
It's a bug.
And it's a bug, and it doesn't talk, and it doesn't. You don't know what's motivating it, and there's and even the fight with him you're guaranteed to win it. It's just so bad.
Like, they introduced voice acting. They punched up the graphic. They did all that. Like, what? I don't get it. Even I think a generic, non-interesting villain that would have been extremely disappointing would have been better than what we got.
Dude, they should have dropped Yevon. Here is what I would have corrected about FF10. You drop Yevon completely. Like, Yevon isn't even a thing. Yevon is just this generic term for religion that the people of Spira use, and Yevon isn't a thing. Maybe he's like the founder, but he died a long time ago. Who gives a shit? And then, so Sin is actually just this unstoppable force of nature, which corrupts everything that it comes in contact with. And so Jecht still is not in control of what he's doing. Like, he has to, because Sin is this force of evil, and he's been swallowed up by Sin.
Yeah.
But then Seymour comes out of nowhere at the last second, and he actually succeeds in his plan to take Jecht's place. And because Seymour is this really powerful sorcerer, like, he's like this unstoppable evil force. Like, he actually wants to control Sin. And he kind of succeeds. So there's your final boss. That would have been great, because you actually got to spend time with Seymour. They were kind of building up Seymour as probably the final boss. And then he's not. And then you just take him out like a fucking chump once you get into Sin.
Basically, once you're in Sin, he is a chump.
Like, why would they write him? Why would they spend as much time developing him as they did, just to have him go out like a chump in the 11th hour? That was bad.
Yeah.
And then Jecht too. Like I enjoyed the fight with Jecht. I thought Jecht's interaction with Tidus and the actual combat scenario with him was really well done. But that was kind of the part where Yevon was supposed to like reveal like, you won't be getting this puppet of mine back that easily, yahaha, and then he jumps in and, it's like, oh, I fucking hate you, you're such a horrible creature. No, it's just a fucking like floating octopus bug, and fuck that thing.
Even if they just left it as, hey, I had to become the final guardian, and I don't know how they would have fixed the whole.
And for Christ's sake, stop casting full life on me.
But the whole just, I had to become the final guardian, so you have to kill me. Like, I thought that was cool. That
was very good. That was well done.
And obviously it's like his dad that he's just meeting up with again. His dad had no choice in this. He's just a good person, and this is where it got him. Kind of like Arden, I guess.
And I love Jecht too, because he was such a flawed character in the best possible way. Like, he wanted to be a good dad. He wanted to do right by his son, but he was just totally clueless as to what that looked like, and he really loved the booze. It's just that to me is sympathetic. Because it's real.
Yeah, it is.
Like, there are real dads like that just don't know how to interact with their children. And it's tragic. And I love that. Like, I actually teared up at that part where Tidus finally confronts him and, like, he can't even spit out the words, I hate you. That was well written and well delivered.
Yeah.
And then to piss it away right there with you, Yevon. Oh, that it kind of undermined the whole climax of the story up to that point. Because, Tidus reconciles with Jecht. Jecht dies a tragic death, and now it's time to really engage with this evil that has been, perverting Spira for centuries. And what is it? It's a fucking bug. And you can't even lose to it. I mean,
no, the stakes are... The
There's
Jecht
no
fight is
stakes.
obviously, kind of the final fight.
Yeah, the Jecht fight is the real final boss, but I don't accept that, given the build-up.
Yeah.
I thought Seymour would have been a much more suitable puppet master. And because Seymour had some real motivation, too. Like, he had the whole racial thing going on, which was something Final Fantasy hadn't done before. That was tragic shit.
Yeah.
And when they revealed, like, that Seymour had actually killed his father, and it's like, wow, this guy's fucked up in the head. I want to see more of this guy.
Yeah, to be something where he, even if he was like, I'm going to be used by sin, or I'm going to try to use sin and he fails, even something like that, like, whether it be tragic in the way where he gets taken over by sin, or he kind of figures it out somehow and, became like this powerful being. Like, either one of those would have been preferable to what we actually got.
That kind of brings me to my final point about 10, was that they kind of had too many... what's the phrase? Too many kettles on the stove
in the kitchen.
Yeah, right. So you had Jecht, which is kind of this overwhelming, overarching plot point with Tidus. Is he really a villain? Is he really as bad of a guy as Tidus remembers, or is he just misunderstood? You had Seymour, who is more clearly, just the evil, deranged character. You had Sin, which is this unstoppable force of nature. And then you had Yevon, which is, kind of the mastermind of the whole thing, supposedly. And they couldn't quite flesh them all out. Like, I think Yevon should have just been dropped, or he should have just been like this encyclopedia entry. Like, he tried to save the world by forming this religion and inadvertently created sin. And that's all we needed to know about him. Yeah. That would have been just fine.
Played through 10-2. Who was the villain of 10-2? Was
the Vengabus? the Vengabus. No, it's the Vegna gun. Which makes even less sense than Yevon, because it's just this machine that's gone out of control. And
that's
has
the
kind of
boss.
Which and may or may not have gained sentience. I wasn't quite sure on that point.
It all kind of fell apart at the end.
Yeah, 10-2, it was ambitious. Like, they'd never done a real sequel before. But at the same time, you could overall skip the narrative. Like, in the same way that I feel like Kuja would have been better served by them, giving him like a really evil ending. I feel like 10-2 would have actually been better served if at the end of the game, Yuna's like, oh my gosh, we can't bring Tidus back from the dead. It's time for me to mature and move on and remember the wonderful life lessons he taught me. Like, I feel like the ending of 10-2 craps on the ending of 10.
It does, if you get like the true ending of 10-2.
Where Tidus does come back. Like,
I loved the ending of 10. And
the reason I love the ending of 10 so much is because it took Final Fantasy 10 fucking entries to actually have a hero make the noble sacrifice. And when they finally did, it was so well done. Like, you mean to tell me that people didn't tear up when Tidus tried to hug Yuna and he couldn't?
Yeah, Yevon sucked, but the ending of that game, it definitely had emotional weight to it. It the whole game, it paid off to tug at your heartstrings at the end and to be yeah, you got to know this guy. He really wanted to just get back to his world, and then he found out it was all a lie.
And he still decides to go through with it, just to save his friends.
Yep, just because he loves this woman. He learned to love this woman and the world that she's in, and he makes the sacrifice, and they take that all away. And they're like,
Tidus is probably my favorite protagonist. We were talking about favorite villains. Tidus is probably my favorite protagonist in the series, simply by virtue of the fact that he undergoes the most genuinely beautiful character arc of just about any Final Fantasy character. When you're introduced to him, he is this dickhead, jock, spoiled kid. And then it's revealed, okay, he kind of has daddy issues. He's a little bit of a whiner and a crybaby. Yeah. All right, not exactly endearing traits, but at least they give him a little bit of depth. And then by the time it wraps up, I mean, he saves Yuna. He sacrifices himself to save the entire goddamn world. He reconciles to his dad, and he's like a genuine, like, badass warrior character. I mean, that is so awesome.
He never stops being brash, but I think he does
himself.
grow, and he uses it in a way. He was able to, like, do things and get things that the rest of the Guardians weren't able to do. This was like, no, you gotta play by the rules, you gotta do this. And he's like, no, fuck that. Like, this is all messed up. Can't you guys see that? Like,
and it's so cool because as a result of his personal growth, he actually has a legitimate effect on the entire surrounding cast.
He does. He has a big effect
he helps Wakka come to terms with his brother's death. He gets Lulu to come out of his shell. He basically undoes racism for the entire planet with Riku. I mean, that's really cool. He's
the one that got the main characters to. I mean, Leska would have, kind of done that anyway, but he's the one that really called. I think without Tidus, they might have just repeated the cycle.
They absolutely would have.
And he's the one that was really like, no, this is bullshit.
It's kind of that cool thing where, like, one person really can make a difference. That sort of thing. And they communicated that extremely well and personably with Tidus. I get so mad at people who kind of crap on FF10's story because of, like, the laughing scene or whatever. That doesn't bother me in the slightest.
Yeah.
Particularly because of the context where, Tidus and Yuna are, like, in this really screwed up situation, and they're just trying to make the best of it. Like, they're trying to force themselves to laugh so that they can get some genuine humor as a result.
None of us have ever been in that situation. Yeah, probably going to be to be like, let's try this. Like,
I mean, like, people look at it and they say, oh, that was so forced and so stupid. Well, yeah, it was forced. That was the whole goddamn point. They were literally forcing themselves to do that. So, again, was it the strongest part of the story? No, but I thought overall that game had a very, very strong story, compounded by the fact that it had one of the most unique and compelling protagonists in the entire series.
Yeah. I think you went the correct way, by the way. I always go left there, because I think you get into a little cave.
Yeah.
Or something. But, oh my god, I can't believe we're already getting to we're going to split up.
Yep, that'll be episode 3.
Which is already one of the best parts of the game.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's actually one of my favorite parts of the game is when the party diverges and you get, like, these cool little side stories with everyone.
Yeah, the Sabin side story and
the best.
Locke side story are great, and the Sabin one is the longest and the best. It's so good.
Yes.
There's
so Sabin goes on this, like, globe-trotting adventure,
Seriously?
And somehow he shows up like 2 minutes behind everyone else. It's so great.
Keeping with the party on the raft is definitely the most boring of them. Like,
and that'll be the one that we do first, just to get it out of the way. The order that I like to do it in is usually Terra, Locke, Sabin.
Okay, that's a good order. I think I always start with Sabin because it's like, let's do it.
I want to delay the gratification.
Start with Locke. I actually start with Locke, and then I do Sabin, and then I just kind of like do Terra. I do that whole thing last because it's just like, let's get to Narsh, and then we'll just continue the main story from there.
It's kind of it's kind of hilarious. Yeah, it's kind of hilarious that Sabin shows up like 5 minutes later than Terra and Edgar do, because they're like 10 feet away from Narsh, and they just show up, and it's like, wow, Sabin's really going fast around that entire other continent. And then Locke, he's like trapped behind enemy lines, and he has to sneak around, and then he has to travel all the way back to Narsh. So you kind of buy that his is a longer journey as well. Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah,
I feel like the Terra, Edgar, and Bannon one, it would have been kind of cool, like, you know, if the raft crashes, you know, or they have to kind of float along for quite a while, and you kind of get these scenes where Bannon is explaining a little bit more about the world to Terra or something like that. That would have made it a little stronger, but, you know.
Yeah.
I'm basically nitpicking.
Yeah, when you're comparing the stories, it's, one's definitely weaker than the others.
It kind of would have been cool, like, even if they just, like, camped out before they reached Narsh, and there's, like, kind of like, you know, when you first meet Tella in FF4, and there's that campfire scene where he's chatting with Cecil a little bit, and he kind of explains...
Talks about his daughter.
His daughter, and they kind of allude to Rydia's, like, secret potential and everything like that, and... You know, just a scene like that with Terra, where it's like, oh, wow, you don't quite fully understand your power, do you, child? And she's, you know, totally clueless and insecure. That would have been kind of a cool character-building moment. But, again, she gets that. It's just later.
Yeah, that would have been
you get it from Rama
Bannon,
instead of
Bannon. Because you don't really get much from Bannon in this game.
No, Bannon's a chump.
Just a chump. Leader of the Returners. Such a chump.
What's really hilarious, too, is... Wait, am I right? If Bannon dies, it's game over, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so I actually have to really be careful. I should have put Bannon in the back row. Whoops. I mean, the stakes aren't very high here.
But it's like, all he's good for is, like, praying. He's good for hopes and prayers.
It's left again, right?
Thoughts and prayers. I go left, yeah.
Because up takes you in a circle, yeah. Okay, here we go. Here's a chance to put Bannon in the back row. There we are. Oh yeah, priest. That's interesting. Not altogether inaccurate.
Like a crazy person.
Yeah, I know. He kind of looks like the guy on the street corner telling you the end is nigh. You know?
Seriously.
Oh, Bannon. I just saved, right?
He looks like a noble monk or something from his sprite art. And then you just look at the picture, it's like, whoa, God.
Dear God,
dude.
Bannon.
Bannon, take a shower, dude.
Yeah, lather, rinse, and repeat, guy. Come on. Use some conditioner in that hair. Jesus. Oh, man. And now we're introduced to another great character coming up here. Ultros, or depending on the translation, use Orthoros.
Orthoros, yeah. I'm partial to
Ultros is just easier to say.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So you watched Avengers, huh?
Oh, yeah. So that might have to be like next time we chat, because I've got some things to say about that, too.
I need to fucking talk to you about that.
Yeah, and I'm too lazy to make the spoiler card for this episode.
I was about to say, if we did that, if we got into it, you would definitely have to put a...
Yeah. That's what I did for Infinity War last year when we did that. Man, can you believe we've been doing this for over a year?
That's crazy. Yeah, like, what, a year and a half now? Because it was like October, November or something that we started this?
Well, technically it started with FF7
FF7 on the PS4,
ago.
yeah.
That was actually 2 years ago, yeah.
Wow.
But we didn't really kind of get into our groove until Christmas of that year.
When we started doing the, on the computer, yeah.
Yeah. The computer really made the difference.
It did. And it's also, and the Elgato made a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. For sure. But yeah, I
goofy motherfucker.
Just a real quick spoiler-free summary. I thought Endgame was brilliant, and I love how they kind of wrapped up some things that they had been doing really for 10 years since the original Iron Man.
That was the biggest thing.
The payoff was excellent.
They wrapped a nice bow on so many things.
It was so fan servicey in like the best possible way.
It was. Yeah, it really was. I see some people be like, "Oh, it's disappointing." It's kind of like, are you comparing it to other, like, even compared to other Marvel movies? I think it's a great movie, you know.
Oh yeah.
But it's just like as a movie that stands by itself. What, guys? Come on, what do you expect? Like, yeah. Anyway, I can't even think of much more. Like, there's so many things I would say. It was definitely get spoiler territory, but yeah.
Yeah, like I
We'll talk
said,
about that
we
some other
definitely
time.
will talk spoilers next episode. But yeah, overall, like I don't think I've ever been as satisfied coming out of a movie, even if it's not my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that was absolutely the most ambitious, like long-ranging and satisfying film arc that's ever been done.
Yeah. I mean, to tie up 22 movies, 10 years, a
And
third
to
of our
do it-
lives growing up with this stuff.
And to
like,
not only like hash it out somewhat successfully, but to knock it out of the park the way that they did, that was just excellent.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
I was pretty satisfied with it.
And not only that though, but like between Infinity War and Endgame, Thanos is one of like the most excellent villains, just simply by virtue of how much you hate him. He's such a fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Like-
and they they did good with him in this
They did really
movie.
good. Yeah. And
That's
like
all I
they
can
wrote
say.
him in a way that you really just despise him. by
That's
the
true.
end.
I
Yeah.
think more with this one for sure.
Like the opposite of what I was talking about with Kuja. You know, like where he really gets
Yeah.
his big bad ending, you know? That was
Yeah.
well done.
Yeah, he does.
This part is great too. Sabin just like submerges himself to try to like punch him to death.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what happened there. Did Ultros explode? Or?
Like throw him or what?
Yeah, right? What just went down? Oh well.
It's like,
And,
whoop.
and yeah, Edgar seems a little too burky. Ah, Sabin. All
He's
right,
kind
take
of
care
just
of
like,
yourself.
he'll be fine.
Yeah, trust me. He's cool. He's inhaling a lot of water. Oh man, I
This is
kind of wish we
cool.
could do a third episode tonight because this really is one of my favorite parts of this game.
This is great. I love they get to this pretty early.
In a game filled with memorable moments, this is definitely a memorable moment. How you doing there, Mog? Damn, level 15. He's clearly taken Moggy's death as a chance to get buff, you know?
Man, I really thought it was an imp at this point of the game, but maybe that's somewhere else. That you have an imp.
There's like a tutorial that kind of
Maybe
is
that's
narrated
what
to
it
you
is.
by an imp, but well, hey Max, this has been an awesome 2 hours, and next time
Yeah,
on Play the
seriously.
Hits, we get to a really fun part of this game.
Yup. All right.
And
we'll see you
we
then.
discuss Infinity War / Endgame, so we'll see you then.
Oh, for sure.
All right, later, buddy.
Yep. Have a good night.